Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be upon you all. Welcome to weekly Dhikr, weekly Sufi Meditation on this Thursday, the 4th of November, 2021. I hope everybody is well, wherever you are watching this from, and having a good evening if you're in the UK, and a good day wherever you are. I would also like to wish all of my Hindu, Sikh, and other friends who are celebrating Diwali a very happy and blessed Diwali. We don't think of Diwali as traditionally a Muslim festival because it's arose within India, but alaikum. We don't traditionally associate Diwali as a Muslim festival, but a lot of Muslims in India, maybe in Pakistan, also in Indonesia and Malaysia, they will join in Diwali celebrations with people of other faiths. And Diwali, it come out of Indian harvest festivals. So it's like a fusion of harvest festivals within the Indian subcontinent to celebrate the autumn harvest. And it's also to celebrate the victory of light over darkness and of good over evil. So although this isn't an Islamic festival as such, I mean, there's no harm if Muslims want to join in celebrating it, because the whole thing is beautiful. It's a harvest festival, and it's celebrating the victory of light over darkness, of good over evil, and of knowledge over ignorance. And of course, we know that the Prophet Muhammad, one of his greatest struggles was against Jahiliyyah, which is ignorance. He was struggling to establish good and justice and a beautiful kind of society. So there is actually a parallel here, which we should probably talk about more often. Bismillah. Salam alaikum, brother. So, I mean, it's a good thing to join in Diwali celebrations. And, we shouldn't be like saying, oh, just because this is not an Islamic festival that we can find written in the Quran, that it's haram. No, it's not as simple as that. You've got to look at the meaning behind the festival. If a festival is celebrating light, if a festival is celebrating the victory of good over evil and knowledge over ignorance, why can't a Muslim join in that? Why can't a Muslim join in that? It just doesn't make sense to say that this is something wrong. And actually, as Muslims, we need to think about that, because when we just come out with statements saying, oh, this is haram, this is wrong, we can't do it, and then other people look at what we're saying is wrong, not me personally, but there are some Muslim imams and sheikhs who say these things. And if they see that that thing that is being rejected is a good thing, so for instance, in this case, Diwali, which is a festival of light, festival that celebrates good things, if we turn around and then say, oh, that's wrong, we shouldn't join in that, we're going to look like total plonkers, because it's a good thing. Why wouldn't we want to celebrate that? It makes us look either stupid or bad or ignorant or very foolish. And so, there are some very loudmouth preachers out there who come out with these things, and it's not wise, it's not clever, and it's not Islamic actually, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in the Holy Quran that we should invite people with wisdom and beautiful preachings. I'm not sure. We should invite people with wisdom and beautiful preachings. And where is the wisdom in some of the statements that we hear from people who sadly have got a following? In some cases, they're not scholars. They're not people who really have a depth of knowledge about Islam. And this is very apparent in some of the things which they state and come out with. I mean, I've got a friend here from Indonesia who just asked me something, which I'm not sure the answer to that, because they're asking me if I know a particular person in Indonesia, and there's a lot of ulama in Indonesia. I do know a few, but I'm not sure if I know this particular one. I don't think so. But if not, then I really do hope to meet them at some point. But they're from Indonesia, and Indonesia is very interesting because the scholars of Islam in Indonesia, they looked for ways to teach Islam with wisdom and beautiful preaching. They took that ayah of the Quran to heart, and they actually implemented it. And it's not unusual in Indonesia to find ulama, scholars of Islam, teaching the Ramayana or making presentations on the Ramayana. Now, for any of you who don't know, the Ramayana is a Hindu scripture. It's a Hindu scripture. It's from the religion of Hinduism. Or that's a modern term. It's actually from the religion of the Vedas and the Vedanta. But today, people know it as Hinduism. And it's an ancient Sanskrit text from India. But before Indonesians became Muslims, Indonesians were Hindus and Buddhists, predominantly. There may have been other beliefs, but these were very popular beliefs in Indonesia. But the ulama who went to Indonesia were wise ulama. They were ulama who understood Islam with depth, not just surface. They understood the depth of Islam, like the depths of the oceans. And they knew Islam is an ocean. It's not a shallow pool. A shallow pool, you put something in it, it will get dirty, it will get ruined. A shallow pool, if you're thirsty, you can't even drink from it because the water is polluted. You can't drink from the ocean either, but the ocean is cleaner than a shallow pool. We get food from the ocean, we fish from the ocean. And if you have a large body of fresh water, like a big lake or something, the water is going to be cleaner in there, unless, I mean, today you get factories that dump lots of sewage in it, but traditionally, and if no factories are dumping sewage in it, then a big lake would actually have quite clean water, especially if it's found in the mountains. So with depth, you get that kind of, you get more benefits and more blessing than you would if you just have a little shallow pool. And today, a lot of the people preaching Islam are like those little shallow puddles. That's all they contain, like the water in a shallow puddle. But the great ulama of Islam, very few like that alive today, but certainly historically, the great ulama of Islam were like the world's oceans in terms of the knowledge and wisdom that they possessed. And alhamdulillah, for the people of Indonesia, the ulama who visited Indonesia were such people who were great oceans of Islam. And so when they went to Indonesia, they didn't say like what some of these silly preachers are saying today, oh, you can't celebrate Christmas. You can't celebrate the Ramayana. You can't do any of these things. No, they didn't say this. They learned the Ramayana. They learned about it. They studied it. What is it that these people believe? And when they studied the Ramayana, they said, there is good in the Ramayana. There is wisdom in the Ramayana. There is knowledge in the Ramayana. We can use that to guide the people and teach them Islam too. They love the Ramayana. Why detach them from the Ramayana when the Ramayana is teaching them so many good things? It teaches you to be noble. It teaches you to be courageous. It teaches you to stand up for good and struggle against evil. These are principles that Muslims should have, Muslims should live by. So the ulama, they taught the Ramayana and they taught Islam side by side. They didn't reject it. They didn't get rid of it. So you see, the ulama who went to Indonesia, they had wisdom. If we applied that wisdom today, there's no way we could turn around and say a festival like Diwali is haram. We would celebrate Diwali. We would even organize Diwali celebrations at our mosques and teach people about Islam at the same time, and how Islam teaches you to celebrate the light and, appreciate where the light is there, and it casts away the darkness, and to celebrate the victory of good over evil, to celebrate the victory of knowledge over jahiliyyah, over ignorance. And we would be able to use this to do that. Subhanallah. And my friend here in Wolverhampton, he said, the scholars of the past conveyed the inward reality of Islam before they established an Islamic legal system. And this is the point. You see, within Islam is oceans of knowledge. And there's different oceans that you can study. You can study the ocean, well, you can meditate upon the ocean of the oneness of Allah, of Tawheed. It's actually the essence of Islam. To be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to develop taqwa. You don't do that, then you're not going to get very far in Islam. That is the essence of it. La ilaha illallah. Why do you think the Sufis, they always chant, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah? It's to get it into our thick skulls. There's only one Allah. And not Allah created everything. And not Allah connects everything. So wherever you look, you are seeing the face of Allah. There is nowhere you are not with Allah. You're always with Allah. But to develop that, not just as to say it as words, but to understand it, not with the mind, but with the heart. So wherever you are, you always perceive that you're in the presence of Allah, that you're never alone. If you really perfect this, you will never do anything really wrong. You will always be on the right path. Even if you make technical mistakes, you will not make real mistakes, because you'll be conscious of Allah in everything which you are doing. So you're going to be watching yourself, because you know Allah is watching you. Allah is not only watching you, Allah is with you. Allah is working through you. You become aware of this. Really aware, not just the words, it's transformational. But this is one ocean. Today, you get a lot of people studying another ocean that Islam has given to the world, which has generally been a blessing, and it's also influenced the West. People don't realize this, but English law and English common law, which also is the legal system in many countries such as the United States and Australia, New Zealand, even Malaysia and Pakistan. English law is in all these places, but English law was influenced by Maliki fiqh. Maliki fiqh, which is a form of Islamic jurisprudence. Sharia, some people will say, it's the basis of it. Islam gave law to the world. This is why Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is known in scholarly circles in the West as the lawgiver. And this is another ocean that Islam has given to the world, and when properly understood, is tremendous blessing for our human family. But today, there are some people, they study this, and they don't develop taqwa. They don't develop the ocean of wisdom either. So they're devoid of spirituality, and they're devoid of wisdom. Now, if you have no spirituality, you're not really connected with Allah and with God consciousness. You lack this. You might know things that you've read in books, but you are lacking the consciousness that you need to really understand them and how to implement them. Sorry. And there are people who lack wisdom, who lack hikmah. If you lack hikmah, you don't know how to apply the knowledge which you have you memorized. I'm not even going to say learned, you've memorized. If you learn something, you can understand it, you can explain it back, you can dissect it, you can explain it in your own words in so many different ways, from different angles. You can use different analogies to explain it to people in a simple way. Even if it's something quite complicated, you can give a good idea of what you've studied. If you've learned something, you understand it. But if you've memorized something, you don't really understand it. Anybody can memorize things. But if you memorize it, you don't necessarily know how to apply it. And you can make mistakes in application. And one of the biggest problems that Muslims have today, I mean, somebody mentioned the Taliban on here, a classic example. They don't know how to apply this knowledge. They can quote things from the Quran and from the Hadith. Anybody can quote things from the Quran and Hadith. A person who's not a Muslim who's read these books can quote them. Shaitan can quote them better than most Muslims. In fact, Christians have a saying that the devil knows the Bible better than most Christians do. Nobody knows the devil, that's the one. Nobody knows the Bible better than the devil. This is a Christian saying. And the reality is, it's the same for Muslims. The devil knows the Quran better than Muslims do, generally. The devil knows the Hadith even better because they're more useful. So we have to be very careful of just quoting things and not understanding them. It's the understanding that's important, and the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's not to say that memorizing these things isn't important as well. But if you don't have the foundation of understanding and of, obviously, of taqwa, of the connection with Allah, that tawheed, actually not just knowing that there's one God, but actually really feeling and being conscious of the oneness of God, having that spiritual connection. Unless you have that, and unless you have wisdom, just memorizing things is not going to do you much good. So we have to be careful. This is where a lot of Muslims have gone wrong today. And they're scared of people who've memorized things because, they can sound clever, because they can say, ayah this, in surah that, and on page this. You try this. You get a book and you memorize a few little quotes on a few pages or a few ayahs. Anybody can actually do that. And without even understanding what they're reading. And I've seen it with my own eyes where people have quoted verses from memory and says it's on this page, on this, and you know what? It's actually speaking against them. They are saying it and it's speaking against what they are saying. They think it's backing up what they're saying and it's not. I've seen this. And even with some quite famous preachers. Yeah, the understanding must be inclined with the early generations. But the thing is, it's understanding that must be inclined, not necessarily exactly what they did, because they were living in a different time. And the thing we've got to bear in mind is the time of the Prophet Muhammad SAW was a very violent time. Compared to, today you could argue today is quite violent as well. And it's true, when you have a war happen, it can be even worse in some ways if you happen to be, where the bombs and stuff are being dropped. But aside from that, for most societies where people are not being bombed, and this isn't happening, it's less violent. And there's a lot of people that don't really have even a connection with war today. They only know civil society. Whereas this was not the case in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, certainly not within Arabia and not within a lot of places. And when I say not within a lot of places, because the Prophet Muhammad roughly correlates to when Viking raiders were raiding the shores of England. That also was very violent. So it was a very violent world. And so this is why we do read about fighting and stuff within the Quran and within the Hadith. And we have to understand what the context of that is. And it was defensive. It was not to inflict violence upon anybody. It was to protect people. It was to establish and protect justice within society so that there would be less violence. If we don't understand that, then we can misunderstand, and it can create, I mean, we certainly wouldn't want to copy that in this time without understanding what the situation is and what applies and what doesn't. I mean, for someone living in a modern city, almost anywhere in the world, unless they happen to be in a war zone, they shouldn't be fighting anybody. They might want to learn martial arts or something to prepare themselves if ever they were in a dangerous situation, but they wouldn't, they wouldn't and shouldn't be using that except as a sport within the safe way it's supposed to be practiced. But in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, his community were always under attack, or for a large part of the time. And not just from the Quraysh, but there was all different groups, all different tribes. And the Prophet Muhammad did a lot to change that and to bring tribes together and to stop warfare between tribes. So we have to understand the context and what was going on. So yes, we should incline towards the understanding of the early generations, but also we have to understand, really understand, and not just say that because they did things a certain way that it's necessarily appropriate for us to do it the same way in what is today quite a different world. And even within today's world, you know, someone living in England will have different challenges to address than someone who's living in somewhere like Pakistan, or that would be different from someone who's living in Yemen, because the situation is different in different countries. So on those sorts of practical matters on that side of thing, we have to understand that. But when we understand that the Prophet Muhammad only resorted to warfare for defensive purposes, to protect people, and it was not an offensive thing, then that really, even just understanding that point, we can kind of see how it's supposed to work. And we can see that there are some groups that are in today's world who you need a lot of study, and you need to study under good teachers. Someone asks, so how do we understand the Quran and the Sunnah then? You know, you need a good teacher. You can't just open the books. I mean, today, one of the biggest problems we have is that you can read any hadith you want. You can Google them. Now, I'm saying that's a big problem. It's also a very valuable resource. And I'm not knocking this very valuable resource. But the thing is, historically, ordinary Muslims did not open a copy of Bukhari or a copy of Muslim. They just didn't. They didn't read these books. The people who read these books were people who were training to be ulama, or who were ulama, or were training to be a judge, or some equivalent of a barrister, you know, people like this within the society. The average Muslims, they studied the Quran. The Quran was always for everybody. And the Quran was often taught orally. Although there were copies of the Quran, not everybody would have been able to afford a copy. You've got to remember, in those days, people wrote books by hand. So a lot of people probably just memorized the Quran, but books were written to make sure it was preserved. And then when you realize the rarity of books, even within the Islamic world, which had a lot more books than Europe for a long time, but still, these books all had to be handwritten until printing was invented, which was many centuries after those first few generations of Muslims. So, reading wasn't as common as what it is today, although the Prophet Muhammad SAW encouraged people to learn to read and write. But still, after the time of the Prophet Muhammad SAW, it took a long time before this became a common skill that a lot of people had. And I'm sure that Muslim societies were a lot more literate than European societies were for a long time. Well, look, everything has been explained by the Sahaba and the Tabi'in according to the situation that they were in and according to the level of knowledge that was available within the society. What I mean by that is in terms of like the sciences and geography, history, this sort of knowledge that was available outside of Islam, but it's also essential to understanding certain things. And so they explain things according to that. And I'm not knocking that, don't get me wrong. But what I am saying is that we have situations today, which are situations that are happening in today's world, that we need to address using the wisdom from this, but also understanding today's situations. And we have to fit that together. So it's not just a simple case of, you might think it's a silly example, but it's also a classic example. It's like the Prophet Muhammad SAW taught us to tie our camel. Not just to leave our camel wandering around. Now, if we understand that just literally, we should all get camels, we should ride camels, and we should tie our camels. Well, that is not very practical in today's world. Even in Arabia, they drive cars. We don't live in a world where our transport uses camels anymore. So we have to understand the principle behind it. And that's what I mean by actually understanding things with depth, because the principle still applies. Yes, this is true. Abdullah ibn Masud, may Allah be pleased with him, said, people will not cease to being good as long as knowledge emanating from the companions and the people after them. Yes, I don't disagree with that. It's my point is not knocking any of this. It's pointing out that we need depth to our understanding. And, there are people that literally, they do understand things surfacely. And it's sketchy how they understand things, because obviously they will usually reject what I just said about the camel and say, well, obviously nobody drives camels anymore. But at the same time, they will apply what I just said to something else, not realizing that that is also an aspect of the world which has changed. So we have to try and understand how the principles that the Prophet Muhammad SAW taught us apply in that situation, rather than, the literal what the Prophet SAW did. It's like, does it really matter in today's world whether a person uses a miswak or a toothbrush? Some people will say yes. Some people will absolutely insist that you must use a miswak, instead of understanding that the Prophet Muhammad SAW was teaching us to brush our teeth and to keep oral hygiene. Now, the best thing that was available at that time were the branches of a certain shrub that made good toothbrushes. Now, if you want to use that, so this is what I was saying. You can't, as a Muslim, you need scholars. And, I've studied with scholars, so I'm aware of this. This is what I said already. It's like we need to study with scholars. We need to have good teachers. And then we will understand better. Yeah, but this again, now this Abdul Rahman, this is where, okay, the hadith is saying, adhere to the utter narration and the tariqat way of the Salaf and beware of newly invented matters, for all of it is innovation. But actually, it is a classical understanding of the scholars of Al-Sunnah wa Jamaat that there are things which are innovations, which are good innovations. Not everything which is an innovation is a bad thing. And, a few very simple examples which you use all the time, which are innovations. The Quran being printed in a book. Actually, the Quran just being written in a book and compiled as a book. This is an innovation. This was an innovation that was a very early one. This comes from Umar, who was, may Allah bless his soul, who was advising Abu Bakr as-Siddiq to compile the Quran in a book. So this was, the very early on, and these were Sahaba. But still, the Quran being compiled as a book was after the time of the Prophet. It was after the Prophet had passed away. It was not an instruction from the Prophet. In the life of the Prophet Muhammad, the Quran the people may have made notes, but the Quran was an oral thing. No, it doesn't mean that the Prophet Muhammad didn't do his job properly. It doesn't. Because the Prophet Muhammad left people behind who he trained. They were the next generation of teachers. And in this case, they were the people who compiled the Quran into a book. And there is a lesson in this, which is why the ulama has said that there are some things which are innovations, which are good. And, times change. The Prophet Muhammad also said that every so often there will become a reviver of the religion. Why would a reviver be necessary? Why would a reviver be necessary if nothing was supposed to be done after the Prophet Muhammad? No. Yeah. Okay. So what you prefer is that we follow our own whims. I'd rather follow a scholar who's wrong. Yeah, but the thing is, okay, you saying that too, yeah. No, the thing is, even whichever group people belong to, they have their scholars. I mean, some years ago, many, many years ago, I was still quite a new Muslim, and I was walking to the mosque, and I was wearing a turban, and I was reading Dhikr on a tasbih, and I was stopped by a few brothers. And these brothers said to me, "What's that on your head? Are you a Sikh?" What do you mean, am I a Sikh? Are you a Hindu? Why are you wearing a thing on your head? It's an Indian thing. I said, the Prophet Muhammad used to wear a turban. But they were not aware of this, even though these were people who thought that they had knowledge of the religion. The Prophet Muhammad used to wear a turban. Doesn't mean we all have to wear turbans, but the Prophet Muhammad used to wear a turban, so it is actually a sunnah. And the tasbih, reading dhikr, the Prophet Muhammad there isn't a record of the Prophet Muhammad having something that was strung together like this. But the Prophet Muhammad used to read dhikr on date stones. So it's the same principle, it's just it wasn't strung together. So the thing is, it's, people, they can assume things. And these brothers, they didn't have depth of knowledge. They thought they were knowledgeable. And when I tripped them up by quoting things to them, even though I was quite new to Islam at the time, they said that I should come and speak to their sheikh. So on the one hand, they were telling me that my sheikh is not a sheikh and I shouldn't be listening to him. But then they wanted me to speak to their sheikh, which means, although they thought they were following the hadiths in Bukhari and Muslim and following Quran, in reality, they were just following the teachings of their sheikh, just like I was following the teachings of my sheikh. The sheikh is pointing them towards hadith. Well, my sheikh also points me towards hadith and towards the Quran. But obviously, there are some differences in understanding, and that shows there's a need for further study, further research, and not judging anybody, not jumping to any conclusions, but actually for our own benefit to study further, to try and understand more, and to avoid being judgmental, because this is what divides communities. When people judge each other, they actually create a lot of problems, and it creates factions within communities, and then they fall apart, they break away and set up their own mosque or their own community. And obviously that's really problematic. And then you come away from unity. Okay, well, I've spoken for quite a while, so I'm going to start the dhikr. Before I start the dhikr today, I just want to make an announcement, because some people might leave and they only came for the talk. From next week, I'm not going to be doing the dhikr on a Thursday, but it's actually going to be done on a Monday. So I will be going live on a Monday evening about 5 p.m. or thereabouts, UK time, as opposed to 7 p.m. On Thursday evening. So on Thursdays, I won't be doing this anymore. It'll be on a Monday evening. I will still, and this will actually be because we're actually going to do a group physically and meet up again at the University of Birmingham Multi-Faith Chaplaincy in the Oasis Lounge. So, if you want to come to that, you're most welcome. And this is open for anybody who's interested, so, you don't have to be a Muslim. And I'm aiming to have it as quite a friendly environment where people can discuss Islam and learn about Islam and Sufism, spirituality, discuss any issues which they want to discuss, and where we can also read some zikr and du'as together in the program. So, and also, share some light refreshments and stuff as well. So this is what the plan is from next week. And I'm still planning to actually go live and record the program. So it will still be posted online, but it will just be on a different day. Just to let you know. And I'll leave it there. That concludes Sohbet for today. Thank you for joining us. And now I will start the dhikr, because it's getting quite late actually. Okay. Before we start the dhikr, we always check our intentions and make sure that we're doing this purely for the pleasure of Allah. You could just check your heart. Maybe say Bismillah. But I read a little thing as well. نويت الأبي نويت الأسلة نويت القوة نويت الاتكاء نويت السلوك نويت الريادة لله تعالى في هذا جميع. I intend to perform the 40 days of retreat. I intend to retreat in isolation. I intend to retreat in solitude. I intend to perform the retreat. I intend to follow the path. I intend to perform the spiritual practices for Allah the highest in this place of worship. Worship your Lord until He grants you certainty. We begin with the recitation of the Kalam al-Shahada, the declaration of faith in Islam. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad Sallallahu is His servant and emissary. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We seek Allah's forgiveness by reciting Astaghfirullah, which simply means God forgive me. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. Brother, I'm not going to go into this right now, but yes, there are evidences, there are reasons why we do this. And it's not just, something that has been invented, but it will disturb what we're doing. So that's why I'm not going to go into it now. Astaghfirullahalazim alladhi la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum wa atubu ilayh. Innahu huwa at-tawwabur rahim. Ya musabib al-asbab, ya mufatih al-abwab, ya muqallibul qulubi wal absar. Ya dalail mustakhayyin, ya ghayth mustakhayyatin, ya hayyu ya qayyum, ya dhu jalali wal ikram, wa faridu amri Allah, inna Allaha basiran bil ibad. Rabbit Sharif. Fatiha Sharif. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Salawatu Sharif. We pray for blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad and his noble family. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammadin wa sallim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala آل محمد والسلام اللهم صل على محمد وعلى 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 آل محمد والسلام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Sorry, probably my Instagram. Technology is very useful, but when it fails, it can be. We just start this up again. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to all my friends on Instagram. Sorry about that. It seems to be a technical fault. Anyway, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alam Nasra Sharifa. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. إخلاص الشريف. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الفاتحة الشريفة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين صلوات والشكر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. Abdul Rahman, I'm familiar with the hadith. I've read it before. But have you read the hadiths where the Prophet Muhammad talks about the importance of blessing him, and about how the Prophet Muhammad should be closer to you than your own parents? And the fact that many early scholars, they had no issue with these things. I highly recommend to you to actually read Imam Ibn Taymiyyah's works. Not just the ones which are published by your group, but all of his works. Because Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was a Qadri Sufi. You might find some of the surprising things if you actually open your mind a little and read a little bit wider. I know you've been told what I'm doing is innovation, but who has told you that? And are they the people who are the authorities on Islam? Or are they just people who, inshallah, they're sincere people who have studied and understand things that they understand? Doesn't mean that they're faultless. Apologies if that has paused. That's not me. That's the system. It's Instagram must be having some troubles today. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala salli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي قد اتيتني من الملك ورحمتني من تولي الحديث فطير السماوات والأرض أنت وليه في الدنيا والآخرة توفاني مسلما وذكرني بالصالحين أمان بالله صدق الله العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. إلا الشرف نبي وآل وأصحاب الكرام وإلى واقي أنبياء والمرسلين وكرماء الشرعي وإلى أئمة أبوا وإلى مشايخنا في تلك نقشبنديات عالية قصتان إلى آدي وجقان الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. فلمنه لا إله إلا الله. There is no God but God. لا إله إلا الله 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 محمد رسول الله. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ورسوله ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. إلا الشرف نبي وآل وأصحاب الكرام وإلى واقي سوي سنتنا وصدقيون الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صلوات الشريفة. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى Ali Muhammad wassalim ala wassalim ala Muhammad wala 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 Ali Muhammad wassalim. صلي ربي وسلم على جميع أنبياء ومسلمين ولكل أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. على أشرف الأمين سيدنا محمد الصلوات، على أفضل الأمين سيدنا محمد الصلوات، على أكمل الأمين سيدنا محمد الصلوات، صلوات الله وبركاته وأنبيائه ورسوله وجميع خلقه على محمد وعلى آل محمد عليه وعليهم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. ولي الله تبارك وتعالى تتينا شر رسول الله أجمعين وأن تبينا بهم بإحسان وأن مجتدين ودين وأن علماء المتقين وأن أولياء الصالحين أما الشاكين في طريق النقشبندية آلية قد سروا لهم الزكية ونوت لا ترس مباركة ودلوت علينا من بركاتهم وفيداتهم دائما والحمد لله رب العالمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. اللهم بارك ثواب مذكورنا ونور ما ترونه ورية وسيرة من روح نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه الكرام وإلى واهي سبي أنبياء ومرسلين وكل ما يشرعين وإلى أواهي مشايخنا في تاريخ النقشبندية العالية كستاني إلى روح إمام تاريخ وقوتي كليك شعبه دين نقشبند وإلى الويسي والبخاري وإلى مولانا الشيخ الدكتور فايز الداغستاني وإلى زندبير وإلى الصوفي عبد الله وإلى مولانا الشيخ نازي مدين الوقاني وإلى قسطو وإلى الشيخ أدان بدر الدين وإلى الشيخ بادشاه وإلى الشيخ دكتور طارق القدري وإلى الشيخ داود رصاين وإلى الشيخ محمد أديل وإلى الشيخ نور كباني وأستاذنا عبد الخالق القجراني وأستاذنا والصديقيون الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Ya Allah, we pray that you shower your blessings upon the soul of the Prophet Muhammad for all eternity, and raise his station even higher in your divine presence, and bless all of his family, all of his noble ancestors and noble descendants, and especially the Ahlul Bayt, and bless all of the previous prophets and their noble ancestors and their noble descendants, and the Sahaba Ikram, the Khilafah Rashideen, the ulama, the awliya, and especially my Sheikh Sufi Abdullah and Mulana Sheikh Nazim. Ya Allah, bless their souls and raise your station, and raise their stations in your divine presence. And bless my dear father, Richard Kevin Armstrong, and raise his soul in your divine presence. And bless his soul for all eternity. And Ya Allah, shower your blessings upon Sharif Hidayatullah, all of the Wali Sangha, Sheikh Yusuf, Sheikh Adang Badruddin, and Sheikh Didi and Sheikh Abdul Qadir Sufi. Allah bless their souls and raise their stations in your divine presence. And bless all of our mothers and fathers. Bless our grandparents, great-grandparents, all of our ancestors, our brothers and sisters, our aunties and uncles, especially our dear wives and husbands, children, grandchildren, future generations. Ya Allah, grant your divine protection upon our families and bless our families. Keep our families always under your divine protection, divine guidance, divine blessing, and especially in your divine rahmah. Ya Allah, let us not be misguided after being guided. And let our children be guided ones and blessed ones throughout their lives and successful in this world and in the hereafter. And their children and future generations, Ya Allah. And Ya Allah, have mercy upon us and forgive us, for we all make mistakes. We all sin. We all have our weaknesses. Ya Allah, we ask your forgiveness. We seek that you are always with us, guiding, supporting and blessing us. And you don't leave us alone with ourselves even for a moment. Ya Allah, we ask you bless everyone in our circles of friends, especially those who are really close and good friends. We ask you to bless all sincere scholars, mystics, all who are walking sincerely to serve you, whether spiritually or in jobs such as doctors, nurses, firemen, policemen, soldiers, putting their lives on the line to protect their communities. Ya Allah, we ask that you bless them all. We ask that you bless everyone in our human family and guide the hearts of everyone in our human family. Ya Allah, today people are celebrating Diwali. They're celebrating the victory of light over darkness, of good over evil, and of knowledge over ignorance. Ya Allah, make this a true victory. Make this a true victory for a human family. That light and goodness and knowledge and wisdom, that they do come to precedence within our societies. Firstly, within the hearts of people, and then because they come to precedence within the hearts of people, that they come to precedence within the hearts of our societies. Ya Allah, have mercy upon us all. Mercy upon us all. Mercy upon us all. Inspire us to be better. Inspire us to build beautiful things. Build beautiful societies. Societies which take care of their citizens. Where people are safe to walk the streets. Where people are healthy. Where they are well. Where they have opportunities for education. Where they have opportunities to work that are good, beneficial, and wholesome, both for themselves and for the societies in which they live. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, help and inspire and empower us to build this kind of world as a human family, and to shun evil, to shun darkness, to build good together across all communities. For the sake of your Prophet Muhammad sallallahu Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. Salli ya Rabbi wa salli ala jami' anbiya'i wa muslimin wa ali kulli ajma'in. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wa Fatiha. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم. And that brings to a close the program for this evening. Thank you for joining us. And I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow for my Friday reflections. And on Monday for our next weekly meditation session. So may Allah bless you all. And if you're in the UK, have a very good evening. If you're celebrating Diwali, have a very good Diwali. And if you're celebrating Bonfire Night tomorrow, then enjoy that too, or at the weekend. And I wish you all the very, very best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings be upon you all.